Hey guys, it's me again. So I just went ahead and decided to record the second video. You're not going to see it until like Friday, more than likely. That's why I have still the same crazy hair bun in my head and all kinds of stuff. But I wanted to go ahead and get this one out of the way so that we could kind of move on from there. So it is Friday, and we're going to talk about the American Indian cultures groups in Latin America. And I'm going to move myself over here in the corner so I don't cause any issues. And this would have been the page that I would have probably given you, and we would have color coded it. Obviously, it's not in color, but that's okay. Again, these facts and things that I'm going to give you does not by any means mean you have to memorize anything. Again, that's not the goal. The goal is for you, again, to realize how the environment and the climate changed and affected how the American Indian cultures lived. Okay, and it's the same thing in the South American continent. So I just kind of want to hit a little bit about these guys. So you see that there's 5 of them. Okay, and let's just kind of go from the top here. And we'll go from there. So we've got the Middle America. And if you were sitting in class, I would have had you color code this. Middle America would be right here. It would be the area that stretches from, excuse me, from Mexico to Panama. So this would be this area right here. That would be Middle America. The heart of the region is the Valley of Mexico in that area. So you can even imagine, just knowing that you know where the equator is, the climate here is generally warm, okay? It is near coastlines, and it does have river systems, it does have lakes, and it has mountains, so they do have some varied temperatures and things like that and natural features, but generally it is pretty warm in this area. Remember, this was the same area, and again, we're not going to go as extensive as I was doing in the other group, but this was the area that you had the Mayans and the Aztec civilizations here. Okay, so they were predominantly in this area. So again, what you know of the Mayans and the Aztecs is, you know, they're called the Middle American Indians, and they started as hunters and gatherers. They later turned to farming, when they got into the rainforest areas. Remember, the Aztecs developed the chinampas, those floating gardens. They also grew tomatoes and avocados and chili peppers and squash and cocoa. You guys remember all of those things, I hope, from the last time. And remember, the Mayans, they created the slash and burn method. So they also dug irrigation ditches, and they brought water to their fields. So again, this is just review of this particular area. You probably know more than you think you know about this area because you've watched the Mayan, the Aztec, and the Inca. Not necessarily Inca, but you've watched that video. Again, this is the Middle American Indians. They built villages, which, you know, were the small gathering of homes. Their homes were made of mud and brush with thatched roofs. They built impressive temples in the center of their cities. We talked about that. We talked about the Mayan pyramids. They worshiped their gods of the sun and the rain and other natural events there. So again, something that you guys probably already know. They had a class system. You know, they had the common people wore simple clothing made from plant material, and then they had the nobles who wore plant and animal material, but they also had gold jewelry and gemstones embedded in it to make them look fancier. So again, this would be the Middle America area right here where you see my little mouse cursor, whatever you want to call it. The next one, the Caribbean, I call them Caribbean. And the Caribbean are located, obviously, the islands of the Caribbean make up much of the Caribbean culture. So here's the Caribbean. And the Caribbeans, this is kind of in the way, but I can't move it. Let's see if I can move it a little. No, it just won't move. This is right here, this area. So if we were color coding, it would be this area along with these little islands up here. So this was the Caribbean Native Americans. So obviously this area is warm and humid, okay, because it is, again, close to the equator. A lot of scientists believe that the first people to settle in what is now Cuba probably came from Middle America. They ate shellfish, they made bone and stone tools. They traveled through the islands. They were nomadic, so they lived in caves. Again, this was the Caribbean Native American tribe, and I'll be honest, I don't know too much about these guys. These guys are right here. I do believe, and I guess I'm going to have to double check, but I believe Christopher Columbus, when he was discovering America, these are the Native Americans he ran into, the Caribbeans. If you remember Blood on the River, for those of you who read it with us, this was the first Native American tribes that they encountered. The Carib Indians is what they called them. That kind of has a connection with our book we read. Okay, Taino, Taino, that was the group that was in the Blood on the River. Okay, again, I don't know much about the Caribbeans. We might have to look some of that up. The Andes Mountains, if you remember from when we did early civilization videos, the Andes Mountains are this area right here. So this is what you would color code. And this is where the Incas kind of took over. Again, this is the Andes stretched along the west side of South America. It took me a minute there. The climate is very different. It's very varied. Very varied. I can't talk. It's like 11 o'clock tonight. Seriously, I need to just stop. Some areas, the temperatures swing from extremely hot during the day, and then it'll go freezing at night. It's because of the mountain ranges and the fact that it's coastal. The Andes culture area is bordered by the Atacama coastal desert to the west and the Amazon rainforest to the east. So the Amazon rainforest will be right about here. There's a desert right around here. I think, remember we were talking about that in class. Okay. American Indians in the Andes adapted to their high altitudes. Remember, they didn't really necessarily stay into the rainforest area. They kind of took their refuge in the Andes Mountains at the high altitude, away from enemies. They also made shelters near the coastline and in that desert we were talking about it as well. Inca civilization was the dominant civilization in this area. They built vast roadways. We talked about that. In order to travel and trade and back and forth, that's what they use with their roads. They also built bridges. They also use llamas or alpacas to carry loads through the mountains. I know Cassidy's probably going, llamas. The Andes Indians, they were really good at growing their food. We talked about that. Potatoes was a big thing. They made varieties of potatoes. And they found ways to freeze it and keep it so they didn't spoil. Same thing with their meat. They found ways to freeze their meat too, to preserve it. They used irrigation systems to water their crops. They used the terrace farming, the step ladder type of thing on the sides of the mountains. We talked about that. They built their homes out of adobe or stone, which was like a type of clay. They built incredible cities high up on the mountain plateaus. We talked about Machu Picchu. I think I even showed you a video or I showed you a picture. And if you don't remember, go back to the Inca video and you'll see a picture of Machu Picchu, which is there. Again, they had a class system. Common people wore simple clothing made from cotton or wool. And then the nobles had the elaborate jewelry. They had the fine clothes that was decorated with tassels and beads and feathers of all kinds of things. So that would be the Andes region. Again, very different than the Caribbean, very different than the Middle American, Native Americans, or Indian cultures, I guess I should say. Then you have the tropical forest, and that's right here, aka the rainforest. This area right here, also known as big chunk of Brazil. Okay. So the tropical forest area, again, big chunks of Brazil, parts of Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Venezuela are in there somewhere. It was dominated by the Amazon River basin. So you had the Amazon forest, you had the Amazon River in this area. So you can think vegetation, green, bright green. Anything you could possibly think of was probably in this area of the tropical forest. So you can probably imagine, put yourself back in that time period, how will this Indian culture be different than let's say the Andes culture? It's going to be different. The tropical forest Indians, they combined farming with hunting, fishing and gathering. The tropical Indians, they grew corn, beans, squash. They had tropical vegetables and they had tropical fruits. Makes sense. They wore little clothing. Also makes sense because it would be pretty sticky hot. You can laugh and chuckle, but it's true. They had clusters of villages along the Amazon River where the best farmland would be located. Before they could farm, they had to prepare the land. So they had to use the Mayans slash and burn method. So that was a way that they were able to process their soil and get it ready to grow crops. So they did use that. They did not use stone to make buildings. Unlike the Mayans who did use stone. Remember, the Mayans were up here. These guys didn't use stone. Instead, they made their homes out of log frames. They covered them with palm leaves and grass. Again, that's what they had an abundance of. Makes sense. Other ways that the tropical forest Indians differed from the Mayans, where they didn't have an organized government like the Mayans did. They didn't have a tiered class system. They didn't have a developed written language. Okay. So again, there were some differences in this the tropical forest Indian culture, which would be right here if you were color coding it. Okay, so, and then we've got the South American marginal region, which is the last one. No. I know what I'm doing, I swear. Okay, let me see if I can, okay, here we go. So the South American marginal region, the last region in South America, this would be this area right here. Okay, so it would be your southern Chile. It would be your southern points of South America. It would be Argentina, maybe a little bit of tropical rainforest as well. Again, this is a hot and humid climate, this area right here. So the South American marginal region was made up of a variety of different parts of South America where the land was not good for farming. Okay, I think right around this area was a desert. And do you remember when we looked at the geography at the very beginning of the year and we saw those ice caps at the point of this and we looked them up? I can't remember what those names were, boys and girls, but they were really pretty. Remember we looked at those? So again, they have a variety of climate here. People inhabiting these areas lived nomadic lifestyles, so they were constantly searching for food. Indians hunted, they fished, they gathered. they constantly were searching for food, like I said. So that was pretty much most of their day, was hunting, gathering, searching. They often wore little or no clothing, just like the rainforest Indian culture, because again, it was hot and humid. Depending on what they had around them, some of them may have lived in caves, some of them may have had canoes, because they would have been near the open beaches. Some of them might have built simple huts or lean-tos. So again, it just depended on where they were in this region, because it's such a different variety all around. Yeah, that's really a lot. That's about it. There was an extinct South American Indian group that lived in southern Chile. They were called and I will apologize if I'm not saying this right. It's Chono, Chano, maybe. And because they lived along the coast, probably around this area, maybe, the Chano hunted in the water. And so the Chano men, they used nets made of rawhide strings to catch seals. And they used nets made of bark fiber to catch fish. So again, they were using their resources. Chano women, they would dive in the water for shellfish. Like many Native American Indians, they domesticated animals. The only, I guess, domesticated animal that they had was a dog. And so Chano dogs were small and they were shaggy haired. They were trained to hunt and fish. Their long hair was combined with bark and other plant fibers to be woven into clothing mats and fishing nets. So again, they did have a domesticated type of dog pet, Chanos. This was a Native American culture in this area, tribe in this area here. Okay. Again, that's pretty much all there is. We've talked about all of them. You kind of get to see a difference between how they lived based off of where they were. Same thing for the Native Americans in the North American region. Okay, so what you guys are going to get, hopefully, is you're going to get a slide page. The slide page, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert the text boxes. I'm hoping it works better than the last time. But obviously, I'm not going to. I'll give it to you on Friday. So, well, today will be, you're watching this on Friday. So, what I want you to do is I want you to take that page and I want you should be able to just, where it says type here, you should be able to just delete that and type your answer. I'm hoping that's how it works. Hoping it's a little easier than the last time. Okay. All right. And so that kind of concludes our Native American tribes, the crash course version. What else do we have to lose, boys and girls? We are probably going to jump ourselves next week into explorers. Probably spend a week talking about them so that we can kind of jump into what else we have to talk about. So we've got about 3 or 4 more weeks before school's out. That sounds really funny, doesn't it? School's out. Okay. Anyway, so if you have gotten to the end of this video, I want you to comment down below your favorite holiday. That way I know you've seen the whole video and watched it. All right, I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye. Miss you.